Mind on Fire by Arnold Thomas Fanning. Chapter 11. The Railway Tracks. I stand at the doorway of my father's house in the suburb by the sea as he and my sister go out on their way for a walk. I am smoking. I seem always to be smoking these days, and I am half smiling, giddy. My sister asks me, "What are you up to?" I do not look at her, but stare out, gazing at the houses and trees in the estate. "Just smoking," I say. "No, I mean generally. What are you up to these days?" The smile does not falter. The gaze does not shift from the street. I am doing my best to act as if she's not there. "Just smoking," I said again. She gives up and goes for a walk. I've decided not to look for a job. After all, the agent I met on the subway is even now considering the extract and synopsis of Henry's Blues that I managed to send her, and she will recognise it as a work of genius, recognise me as the next big thing, find me a publisher. I'll have a bestseller and be rich. No need for a job then, which would just be an encumbrance. I will need a little cash flow in the meantime, so I will claim disability benefits to tide me over, for I am not hypoglycemic, the all too frequent crashes being suddenly laid low, exhausted, then the return, equally rapid, to my over-energised state. It must be the fluctuating blood sugar. What else could it be? In early October, I have the first consultation with a new GP, a kind, attentive man, slightly younger than myself. I have come armed with my copy of Hypoglycemia for Dummies and a notebook of cramped notes detailing all of my symptoms and ideas about the condition, about me. As I explain myself, my history, and the misdiagnosis of bipolar disorder, the GP at one moment mishears or misunderstands me, taking umbrage. I stand up, intending to storm out, and he has to reassure me, placate me. Calmly, I sit again, and we work out a plan to do a full physical examination, including blood tests. I weigh 8 stone 2 pounds. The blood tests for hypoglycemia do not indicate anything untoward. Nonetheless, I am deemed unfit for work, and so I am able to get the 6 certs I need to claim disability payments. Now I have an income. There's a workshop for actors, writers and directors I've heard about that meet weekly, and I start to attend the sessions. In the attic room of a rambling building near the canal basin, we participate in theatre games, mock auditions, readings and decisions about performance, theatre and film. For an audition piece, I sit at a desk in front of Graham, a director, and run through a monologue I've managed to memorise in only a few minutes. My mind is racing, razor sharp, recalling an exercise from the Barrow Group, the company I trained with in New York. I decide to add a non-contextual action to the monologue, and so as I speak I untie my shoelaces, take off my shoes, then take off my socks, which I touch to my nose and smell, all the while continuing to speak. Then I reverse the actions and complete the monologue. The director is taken aback by this performance. "I wouldn't give you the part," he says, "but I'll never forget your audition." After my turn is up, I go to the corridor outside the attic room by myself. I sit and feel an unbearable sadness descend. Overcome, I begin to sob quietly to myself, then I manage to calm down and go back into the workshop. Graham and I become friendly. It was his girlfriend Rachel who told me about the workshop, and we often spend hours in their house in a north side suburb talking about our plans for the future. My play, Those Powerful Machines, interests them both, but there is a role in it that would suit Rachel perfectly, and Graham thinks it would make a terrific fringe production for him to direct. We make tentative plans to mount it sometime in the future, tentative because Graham has to complete work on a feature film he is committed to. Still, I feel excited that my play has found a team that could finally bring it to the stage. Through an actor friend who is also a musician, I start a regular music gig playing Delta Blues in a rough and ready pub on the quays, and confidence knows no bounds. My energy and enthusiasm are ceaseless. It dawns on me now that I was rash in my actions over the summer. I suddenly decide I want to reverse and rectify it all. The first thing I need to do is make up with Jennifer, but when I phone her, she's wary of me and rebuffs me, firmly telling me I need to be in Dublin, seeking treatment for my illness. I'm not bipolar, I assert, and explain about the hypoglycemia. "I think you're in denial," she says. "I just want to come back," I plead. "You had a good life," she yells back. It cannot be denied. I did have a good life with her in New York, and now it is gone. In October, I make an appointment with Dr. Kirby. I tell him that I am convinced I have a celiac problem and explain all my mood and energy changes, and that I want to go on a gluten-free diet to solve them. He knows an expert in this, and I should consult. I'm determined now to break off any form of relationship with my father and sister and convince the diagnosis of bipolar disorder I received years before was incorrect. Dr. Kirby stresses the importance of getting away from the negative influence of my father. My college friend Seamus has recently bought a house in Rathdrum, a small village in Wicklow, the county where I'm happy at times. I went on long hikes in the beautiful mountains by myself or with Donald. I meet Seamus for a pint in my local nearby, Ballybrack. Despite the fact we haven't spoken in 2 years, despite the fact that we weren't much in contact in the years before I went to America, despite the fact we really don't know each other too well anymore, I convince him to let me move into his house in Wicklow with him. I won't take no for an answer and just keep haranguing him until he agrees. He is worried about having a housemate in his new house, would rather some time alone there first. You must remember to turn off the stove when you leave the house, he says, more than once. Of course I'll turn off the fucking stove when I leave the house, I retort. Look, I just need a place I can stay for a while, a place I can write, okay? Is that too much to ask? You have a room free after all. I can't write where I am right now. I'll be really clean and quiet, okay? Okay, he agrees reluctantly. In my next consultation with Dr. Kirby, I find he is pleased to hear that I am making arrangements to move to Seamus's house. He thinks that getting away from my father, who I now regard as being sick in some way, is the best thing for me. He wishes me to see a specialist about my hypoglycemia, but I don't have the money to pay for the consultation yet. I promise him that I will go eventually. When I leave him, I tell Dr. Kirby I'll return in a few months to let him know how I'm getting on. Over the course of a couple of days at the end of November, I use my father's car to bring my clothes, guitar, music and several hundred books to the little artisan's cottage in Rathdrum. I've become convinced that my sister and father will take my books if I don't remove them from the house. Once I have moved in, I find I'm in the house alone nearly every day of the week. Seamus is yet to find work in the locality and continues to stay with his family in Dunlanger. The city of New York absorbed and accepted my energy, was a match for it, fed it. Now in this quiet village, my energy levels suddenly plummet and I sink quickly into deep melancholy. At first it manifests itself as a blankness. I have great notions of going on long walks down country lanes and then writing all day on my return, but now I cannot write a thing. I simply don't have the powers or concentration to do so. There are no decent shops in the village and I don't have a car, so my diet becomes one of beans on toast, frozen pizza or fish fingers bought from the newsagents. Typically, I sit in the house all day and watch repeats of sitcoms. My books lie in every corner of the room in piles and on the landing and on the stairs, but I cannot concentrate enough to read them. I watch more TV, I buy more processed food, I sit around with a growing sense of unease, the dawning realization that I have, somewhere along the way, taken a disastrous turn in my life. Taking the train from the village, I go to see Dr. Kirby again in mid-December, desperate, and tell him how I'm now doing, how miserable and guilty I feel since breaking up with Jennifer and leaving my father's house. With my mood shifting ever downwards, I begin to speculate once more that maybe I am in fact bipolar. I wonder too if it's not too late to return to New York and be with Jennifer once again. That would be repeating and re-establishing the same old kind of dependency relationship that has been the story of your life, says Dr. Kirby. You're an addict. You are addicted to dependency-type relationships, and really it's just like a heroin addiction going through cold turkey. This is what you have to go through, even if you are miserable. In a few months, you'll feel better and be free for the first time in your life. The one thing you don't need now is a relationship of the old dependency type. Whether in New York or here, you must work hard at establishing yourself as a writer from now on. He believes that the one person who was positive for me was my mother, and he encourages me to write about her. If I can only get through Christmas and my birthday in January, he says, then I'll feel better in the new year. As Christmas approaches, I grow more depressed. Eventually, I phone Donald, the old family friend, and implore him to come down and visit me. He must hear something disturbing in my voice, or perhaps he has pressing concerns of his own. Either way, he demurs, and so I spend the Christmas period alone in the house, and on Christmas Day eat frozen pizza for lunch and fish fingers for dinner. No one phones me, and I do not phone anyone. Finally, I accept that I'm not doing well here, that the village's isolation is getting to me. Also, I accept that I am depressed. In a series of rapid manoeuvres, I announce to my father, to whom I have not spoken in weeks, that I'm moving back to his house, and with my last vestige of energy, I do so over the course of a couple of days. A few days later, early in the new year, my 35th birthday passes by without comment or acknowledgement from anyone, and I am again in the box room of my father's house in the suburb by the sea. I'm unemployed, I'm without any activity or occupation or motivation to see those out, and I'm deeply, disastrously depressed. Depression is a way of feeling, a way of thinking, and a way of being. It's all-consuming, all-encompassing. It's a way of life, the only life, an anti-life. Within it, there's no without it. It's numbness at skin level and at muscle level and at cell level. It is also a cold fog that envelopes the body from head to toe, freezing in its grip. It's also a physical pain felt throughout the body as well as a mental pain that throbs through the mind. The environment hurts. Sounds, particularly loud noises, hurt. Lights, sounds, movements make the ache worse. It pulses through the body, each pulse worse than the last. It keeps pulsing and it feels as if it can't get worse. Then the next pulse comes, and it is worse. The pain increases with each pulse until it reaches what must be the climax, but then with the next pulse it gets worse again. So there's this waiting, lying there tense, waiting in dread for each pulse, which only worsens the feeling, endless, relentless, unmerciful, indifferent, brutal. Thinking, always thinking, brooding on past mistakes, so many irreversible, irredeemable, unforgivable, considering endlessly the present situation which is dire with no possibility of escape or change or alternative. Looking at the future in dread because it's hopeless, pointless, unlikely to produce change either. Looking at the self and seeing it as inadequate in every way, physically, emotionally, mentally. Thinking on all the failings and failures, the lack of achievement in life today, the missed and lost opportunities, the sheer lack of any good fortune, good experiences, good things to look back upon, and the future just a continuation ad infinitum of the past. Concluding over and over again that life has come to an end is indeed now over. There will be no life after this. Death becomes appealing as an idea, a sensation, a new way of being. As this is no life, life's unbearable. Therefore death must be bearable. All that is left now is finding a way to achieve it. I could take a pill after pill, pack after pack of paracetamol and lie back and wait to sleep and not wake. Or fill the bath, lie in it, take a razor and cut deep into the flesh at the wrist, watch the bath fill with red as life goes and that nothingness takes over. Relief again, just to dwell on this. Or go out to the woods, far from others, with a rope, find a tree, bind the rope to a high branch, then around my neck and drop down, a gag or crack of bone and then nothing. Such thoughts are the closest to joyful or hopeful it's possible to have. When to do it, how to do it, where to do it. Do it when the house is empty so there's no chance of being discovered during the act, no chance of rescue. Do it somewhere far away, in a rural B&B or a remote forest. Just do it though, and soon. The pain of guilt all over I have done to others in the past overrides any thought of how suicide will hurt others now. No one cares, no one wants to know. There's no love in the world, no place in the world, no acceptance in the world. It comes into consciousness like a cold wash of icy water that wakes you to your real life. Everyone hates you, so go on now, go, die. There is a stiffness, a rigidity in the limbs and torso and head. The torso's hunched, bunched up. Movement is kept to a minimum, the barest essential, the shuffle from bed to toilet and back, head kept rigid throughout, limbs stiff and pained, mute too by preference, unsociable of course, avoiding people, avoiding contact with the world, remaining indoors in bed, better to smoke out the window, leaning against the sill than to step into the garden, painful torture when the outdoor beckons, when cigarettes need to be bought, agonising expedition then, shuffle stiff-shouldered up the hill to the shop and then back, seemingly insurmountable distance, then back to bed for days until the next enforced expedition out. My father is in his own routine, his own world, and I seldom enter it. He's mainly in the living room, watching TV, then he goes out once a day for a long walk to the shops in the nearby village, the butchers or the chemists. It is only when he's out, if I can muster the energy, that I go to the kitchen and eat some toast, without appetite, just to quell uncomfortable hunger pangs. When I go out, I do not buy food, only cigarettes. When my father's out, I occasionally stand in the stairwell, tie the belt of my dressing gown around my throat, then tie the other end to the bollard at the top of the banister. Does not seem feasible. There's no clean drop, not enough space or distance. The steps are in the way. My limbs are in the way. But if I were to fold my legs or allow the weight of my head to pull the noose tight as my body slumped over the buckled legs, and maybe, just maybe, I mime it out, the belt gagging me throughout. Then I hear my father's keys at the door and the foot at the stairs. He's returning from his walk. I untie the belt from the bollard and return to my room. Return to the brooding, the pain, the stasis, the swampy, icy fog. Thinking always of dying, thinking of how, thinking of the railway tracks. The tracks run along the coast, hugging the cliff top, a 15-minute walk from my father's house. Passengers get beautiful views of Killarney Bay and its beach, particularly on a fine day when blue skies and sea at the glistening rocks make the vista seem almost Mediterranean. On fine days, once I swam the beach, walked it, viewed the bay, mounted steep steps up to the coast road that ran along the railway route, walked to Dalkey and back. Now such pleasures are beyond me. Now the bay is no longer beautiful and the railway tracks represent something new, an offer of death. There is a spot where the tracks emerge from the tunnel in the cliffs. Here I visualise is the perfect place to wait and then throw myself in front of an oncoming train. There won't be distance or time here for the driver to see me as he emerges from the tunnel. No time to stop before the train is on me. The driver will see me for a flashing second but be unable to do anything about it. The perfect place to die. Then and the perfect death. I really want to die, but I need the means to do so quickly and without pain. When I pull a plastic bag over my head and fix it round my throat with rubber bands, the sense of suffocation frightens me. Pills may render me immobile but leave me conscious for a long time before I die. To cut my wrists or my throat will hurt, really hurt. I press a blade to my wrist, my throat, but then I hesitate, pull back. I'm afraid of the pain that will endure until death. During the period of waiting while the lifeblood flows out of me, I need something quicker. What could be quicker? The train. So the railway tracks. If I can only get myself up and out of this room into the railway tracks, stand outside the tunnel mouth until the train comes, and then without a moment's hesitation, jump, throw myself, drop or fall quickly on the tracks until the wheels of the oncoming train, then yes, it will all finally be over. In the fraction of a second it takes the wheels to sever me from this world, but the railway tracks are insurmountably far away from me in the enervated state, so all I can do now is visualise an image. Even getting to the bathroom is an effort. The half mile to the newsagents for cigarettes an exhausting ordeal. How to walk the mile to the base of the cliff with the railway tracks and scramble up to it. Impossible. So I lie and I think of the tracks, and the depression pulses even worse through me. Then the pulses grow too much for me. The depression grows too much to bear, and I do go. I force myself with effort. I put on clothes. I slowly descend the stairs and put on shoes and coat, and I go outside. I walk to the railway tracks. On this walk I meet no one. My world is an empty one, an unpopulated one, a suburbia that has been emptied of people. I see nobody as I leave the estate and walk the roads. I cross through another estate devoid of people and go under a railway arch and onto the beach. My posture is hunched, my gait shuffling, and in painful to move on, I progress agonisingly slowly toward my destination. The beach is stony and the stones slip under my certain gait. Only the promise of what is to come and the knowledge that I won't have to walk back keeps me going. I only have to reach my destination after all, and then mercifully I can truly rest. I walk the length of the beach. There must be people here. It's a popular walking destination, but I do not see them. They do not see me either, hunched and setting out to die, or certainly not to notice me, nor guess my intentions. I walk the beach to the end, then go up the iron stairway at the cliffs. Here's the point outside the tunnel that is my destination. I clamber over the balustrade, go up the brush-covered, scrubby waste ground. Now I'm at the side of the railway tracks. There are sleepers, the back tracks are small grey stones, and the sleepers are bedded on. Weeds and some rocks on the tract of land by the tracks that lead to the edge of the cliff where the front of the shore. The sea's behind me, grey today. I'm unseen up here, unnoticed. I stand by the railway tracks as I wait for the train to come. Finally, I hear it, deep in the tunnel, and then glimpses it. A speck of light in the darkness, a strip of livery flash and window, and then the wheels, the steel wheels spinning, coming towards me, the wheels that will crush me and liberate me from this world. I push myself to go close to the tracks. They're by my feet now. I'm so close to the tracks I do not need to jump. Merely allow myself to fall or drop down. My body will cross them, my head across them. The path of those wheels, a clean cut then. All I want. I brace to fall. Then the train rushes out the tunnel. The driver sees me and gives a warning blast of his klaxon. It's too late for him to stop before reaching me, because the train is there, on me, beside me, thundering. I shake from head to toe with it now. It has reached me. Now is the time to drop, to fall, to die. The sound is deafening. I see the shock driver so close now, his eyes, his expression. He's a witness to what I have come to do. He knows. There's a moment, just one moment, when it's possible to get my body under those wheels. And then the moment is gone. I'm standing by the railway tracks watching as the train hurtles by me. I'm whipped and buffeted by its winds, and the noise of the train hurts my ears and my head and my body. Passengers see me now, look dumbstruck to see someone so close. I remain a moment by the railway tracks in silence now, failed. I've failed to put myself under the wheels. Even more slowly than before, because I've used up so much of my energy getting there, I return to the estate, the house, the box room, the bed, there to begin the cycle all over again, running through all the ways to die in my mind and reaching the conclusion that the train is the only way, and coming to the realization that I must leave now, this bed, this room, this house, and go to the beach, the coast, the cliffs, ascend the stairs, the hill, the cliff top, stand once more, wait for the train, stand for the railway tracks. Over and over again, I go and wait for the train for the railway tracks and fail to throw myself under the speeding train. What stops me? Only the fear of failure, that there will be a moment when I realise that this, the end, my method has worked and life is ending for me, whether it be the blood loss, the suffocation or impact followed, as I see it, by immediate waking, a waking to a new reality, a reality where I have survived the suicide attempt, but it's maimed me in some way, left me with brain damage or permanent organ failure or the loss of a limb or limbs, and still agonisingly alive and depressed, locked, in other words, in a hell of both mind and body in which I lack the physical means to attempt suicide again and succeed, to liberate myself from depression. I continue to plan, to practice, to walk to the railway tracks when I'm able to and feel that train rush by me and fill me with both fear and a sense of failure. But I still have that big fear of the bigger failure, and so I continue to live.